lesson 1 notes. Okay, I'm going to come back to that after, actually let's just do that now. Alright, go to the module 3 lesson 1 notes. Alright, what you're going to do is there's an attachment, okay, it's a Pages document this time instead of Google Slides. We're trying out different things, see what works best and what you guys as well like best, okay? So what you're going to do is you're going to download the attached Pages document, okay? While listening to me going through the slides here in just a little bit, you're going to fill in the blanks. These are guided notes, okay? So when you open the attachment, okay, it's going to download a little bit, okay? Right off the bat, you already see there are blanks, yes? Okay. I purposely did this so we can move through the notes a little faster, but then it's also not as much as for you, sitting there typing down. So more time for you to be able to digest and understand these notes hopefully a little better. Okay. So what you're going to do right here is go to that arrow and the square right in that right hand corner. Okay. It's going to say, what do you want to open with? I would open to Pages. Copy to Pages. Okay. So when you do that, it brings you right to the document in Pages. And you can do different things with this. So when you edit it, okay, if you have a stylist like I'm using right now, you can go ahead and write on the document, okay? Or if you don't have a stylist, you can just click on it and type in like the blanks, and then you would just have to remove the line that is there, okay? So the lines represent where you need to fill in, right? They're guided notes. You fill in the blanks, okay? Yeah, okay, you're gonna, what's up?
Your screen share is frozen for me.
Just refresh. Refresh your screen. Again, that's why I'm doing a video also, because I know the technology. Okay. I can go on a whole day about the technology. Yes.
I think it's because you clicked on something, it brought you to a different screen. Or like a different,
Well, I'm on Schoology right now. Can you guys see?
I'm just listening.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we can
Just refresh your page. I'm not really sure why it's going like that. But I am recording right now on the iPad. So you can see that later. You have to go download it to Pages. Okay. See how mine is right now open. I know right now in the conference you can't see it. But in the video right now, yeah, you're going to have to remove the blanks. So when you type, okay, so test, type, you see how it moves? But I just have to delete the lines then. And then it fills in like normal. Okay. Alright. So, what you're going to do, okay, is while listening to me, I would probably have it split screen, right, between this video and the notes, or the screen right now of conference. If you can't remember split screen, you just gently slide up from the bottom here, okay? And I'm going to, for me, if I'm using Google Slides, I would drag the Google Slides app, that yellow page app, and do like that, right? Split screen it like that, okay? But I'm just going to go ahead and show the full screen for the slides.
This one.
Yes.
The screen share is still frozen.
Okay, if the screen is not loading, I'm not really sure what to tell you. You'll just have to wait for the video then and listen along. Okay.
I think you have to,
there's nothing more I can do, William David.
Yay.
Now it's the notes. Before it was just Schoology. Okay. Anyways. Alright. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and go along with the notes. Again, if it's an urgent question, you can turn your mic on. Otherwise, put in the chat and I'll answer it when I'm done. But we're going to go ahead and get going with the notes. Okay? Follow along. Again, I'm recording this video. You can watch later if I go too fast. Okay? Alright, so this is just Module 3, Lesson 1. Okay? So, we talked in Module 2, right, all about European exploration, about the people from Europe, okay, coming to this new world and really exploring and then starting to colonize or set up a colony. Okay, a colony is when a main country, so in this case we're going to be really looking at England, okay, setting up areas that England is still ruling over, okay. And so that is where we are today. So we're in settlement in Jamestown, okay? So in 1606, we have King James I. He issued the first Virginia charter that gave the Virginia Company of London, which was made up of English merchants, permission to settle a region called Virginia, okay? So he gave a charter, a document that said to this Virginia Company, this group of English merchants, okay, you have the permission to go and settle and create a colony called Virginia, okay, in what is now the United States, right, what is now actually the state of Virginia today, okay. So on April 26, 1607, we see the first 105 colonists arriving in America, and they founded Jamestown. Guess who do you think they named it after? King James. Yeah, they're very creative with names. Just throwing that out there. Okay. But Jamestown became the first permanent English settlement in North America. The first permanent, right? As in, we learned last in Module 2, England has set up a little bit like Roanoke, but then it disappeared. Okay, Jamestown became the first permanent, as in it stayed, right? Permanent means it's staying there. So most colonists, when they came to Jamestown, they were hoping to find gold and get rich, right? Think about kind of the reasonings for the whole exploration. They were trying to get rich, right? They're trying to find gold. Well, others were looking for new opportunities, especially because in England, you know, it was a lot more people were there, and so sometimes jobs were harder to find, and so a lot of these colonists were hoping to find new opportunities to create, right, get new jobs and just have a new opportunity in life. So most of these men were adventurers, and they had no farming experience or useful skills. So by winter, 2/3 of the original colonists had died. I mean, think about it. They're going to a new land, okay, that has never been touched before besides for the Native Americans that were living there. So there were no, you know, buildings. There were no, you know, stores to go to, right? They had to do all the farming and all the other building by hand by themselves. So if you have no skills in doing that, isn't it going to be kind of hard to survive off that land then? Okay? Yeah, and so by winter, we see majority of them dying. So in 1608, we see a man named John Smith. He came and took control of the colony, and he kind of forcefully took control. He forced settlers to work harder by creating some rules that rewarded hard workers with food. So if you worked hard, okay, you know, you got food, which did help the Jamestown grow, but he was definitely not the nicest leader, right? The colonists also did receive help from the Powhatan Confederacy of Native Americans. So the Powhatan traded food for tools and pots and taught the colonists how to grow corn, which definitely helped the colonists learn some more about the land, and they're seeing, right, we're seeing this interaction with colonists and Native Americans. However, but when more settlers arrived, the Powhatans started to view the settlers as invaders taking over their land, right? As more of these colonists started to arrive here in Jamestown, right, there's more colonists, so now the Powhatans are like, okay, they're not stopping, right? They're coming and they're taking over and they're invading our land. And so during the winter of 1609 to 1610, right, the winter kind of goes in both years, okay, the Powhatans surrounded Jamestown Fort and killed anyone who tried to reach supplies outside. We also see disease and famine. Famine is a lack of food, so there's, like no food. People are not able to eat anything because there's no food to eat, okay? It hit the colony, and so, right, disease and famine, so hunger, okay? You kind of need to be healthy and food to survive, right? And they didn't have that, and so a lot of these colonists died, and so this period, this winter, was called the starving time. So by spring, so after that winter, right, only 60 colonists were still alive. So not a lot. So, we see Jamestown kind of failing to make any sort of profit until a man named John Rolfe introduced a plant known as tobacco. Tobacco is very valuable in Europe and England, right? And it was very wanted, very needed. And so once he introduced tobacco, that's when we really start seeing Jamestown rising, because they were able to make a profit then off of it. We also see John Rolfe marrying a Powhatan leader's daughter, Pocahontas. Yes, if you've seen the movie, okay, but the movie is very historical fiction, okay? That is not actually what happened, but Pocahontas was a real person, I will say that, and she did marry a man named John Rolfe. And this marriage really helped create peaceful relations between the colonists and the Powhatan group. However, after 3 years, okay, Pocahontas had died, and then the colonists years later after that even killed a Powhatan leader, and so fighting between the colonists and Powhatan Native American group continued for the next 20 years. And we'll see a lot. This is kind of a theme throughout pretty much our entire year of social studies class. We're going to see a lot of conflicts between the American people and the Native Americans that were living there. In 1624, since Jamestown really still was not, profiting, it was not still doing well, it became a royal colony existing under the authority of a governor chosen by the king. So, but remember, before it was given to that Virginia company, okay, but pretty much 20 years later, Virginia was under the authority of a governor chosen by the king, and so basically it was ruled by the king then. Alright, so daily life in now Virginia, we see, okay, tobacco farmers established large farms called plantations, and like I was saying before, tobacco is very valuable, and this is pretty much how we see Jamestown, Virginia in general, really starting to make a profit is through these tobacco plantations, and pretty much tobacco became a cash crop for Virginia. Death rates, though, were very high, which led to labor shortages, right? With disease and all this other things still going around, death rates were very high. Well, there was still a need for labor. And so a majority of workers, especially at first, were indentured servants. So indentured servants, they signed a contract to work for about 4 to 7 years for a person if they paid for their journey. So an indentured servant would be like, okay, I will, I'm going to sign this contract. If you pay for my journey, right, to the America, I will work for you for, 5 years, let's say. Okay, so they signed a contract saying, okay, I'm going to work for you if you pay, right, for my journey to America. We also see a Dutch ship. So remember, the Dutch are people from the Netherlands. They brought the first Africans to Virginia in 1619. So we start seeing, remember we talked about a big reason for exploration to of Africa was that it's really started this thing called the Atlantic slave trade. And so we start seeing that starting now to come to this New World, America. And we start in 1619, we start seeing this happening. Some were servants and others had been enslaved. And we'll start seeing later on how much that had grown since 1619. We also see more women arriving in 1620. So at first, there were no women in Jamestown in Virginia. And so, but we start more seeing in 1620, and then when more women were able to show up, right, it actually led to many settlers making more of a permanent home in Virginia, right, because they were starting families. And so we start seeing more people wanting to stay there, right? If their family is there, if they're, making a family there, they're going to most likely stay. So women, though, we see bringing skills such as cooking, sewing, and making household items. They really kind of helped more in that area. So I did want to talk about, it wasn't all right. There were things happening. Rebellions happened. One of the rebellion that happened was Nathaniel Bacon. He led a group, and they attacked friendly Native Americans in opposition to the governor's policies that promoted trade with Native Americans. So some colonists believed that they had the right to take over land that belonged to Native Americans, especially. So Nathaniel Bacon and his men thought the colonists should be able to take the Native Americans' land, and so Bacon and his followers attacked and burned Jamestown when the governor tried to stop them. And so we're seeing this rebellion between especially the American people and the royal government. Okay, so that is also some things that we're going to start seeing. So we see there are other southern colonies, right? Virginia was just pretty much like the first one. And so some other southern colonies we're going to talk about, one of them being Maryland. Okay, Maryland, started with in England. Many English Catholics wanted to come to America to escape religious persecution. So remember when we had talked about that guy, King Henry VIII, with the many wives and whatever. Okay, and he made England Protestant. Okay, well when he did that and made it, and then Queen Elizabeth first also made England Protestant. A lot of the Catholics then were facing religious persecution. Pretty much religious persecution is they were facing, they were getting hated on based on their religious beliefs. Right, and so what happened then was in the 1620s, a man named George Calvert, the first Lord Baltimore, he asked King Charles I to establish a colony for Catholics, right? He's like, hey, can we get a colony in this, the new world for a refuge for Catholics? And so years later, Charles eventually issued the charter to Calvert's son. And so this charter gave the land located north of Virginia, right, as a colony to be, and Calvert intended this colony to be a refuge for English Catholics, right? It would start as a proprietary colony, which was proprietors or owners of the colony control the government. Okay, so again, it wasn't a royal colony yet. There's a difference. Okay, royal colony, a governor appointed by the king, or queen. A proprietary colony is the proprietors or owners of the colony control the government. So as the colony grew, though, we start seeing a number of Protestants moving there. And so we start then seeing more religious conflicts between the Catholics and Protestants rising, right? So again, if Maryland first started as kind of a refuge for Catholics, but now we start seeing more Protestants going there, and now we're started seeing those conflicts between the Protestants and Catholics happening. So we have Lord Baltimore. He presented, right, George Calvert, okay, or his son, presented the Toleration Act of 1649. This act made it a crime to restrict the religious rights of Christians, right? So it was a crime to say, right, that restricted the rights of anyone of the Christian faith. And so this was the first law we see that in the English colonies that supported religious tolerance, as in you are tolerant, you're accepting of other religions, right? Especially religions of the Christian faith. I want to make sure that is known. They're not going to restrict it to you have to practice this one faith, right? And anyone else, you have, get out. No, like they're going to tolerate and accept and respect other religions of the Christian faith. And so this showed that the government wanted to offer religious freedom, again, the freedom and the ability to practice other Christian faiths and protect the rights of minority groups. Okay, another one we start seeing is the Carolinas. So the Carolinas actually did start off as a single colony. So in 1663, King Charles II gave this land south of Virginia to 8 of his supporters, right? But we start seeing in 1712, the colony was pretty much separated then into North and South Carolina, especially because they both started to pretty much grow differently. And so in North Carolina, mostly farmers who migrated south from Virginia. Kind of these were small, farms still, not the huge plantations like we start seeing in South Carolina happening. So a lot of people from South Carolina were coming from Europe. If they paid for their own way, they were giving large grants of land, which eventually then did turn into plantations, and some even then brought enslaved Africans with them to work on that land. Both Carolinas we did see having rice plantations, which we did see, right, a lot of these enslaved Africans were doing the work on these rice plantations. Right, a big reason, remember back in Module 2 we talked about that, remember we start seeing the Spanish starting to bring over people from Africa because of their immunity already being built up, and so we start seeing that also now happening with the English colonists coming over to America. Okay, our last southern colony, Georgia. Okay, so right there are 5 southern colonies. So Georgia started in about 1732. You have King George II granting a charter, again a document, giving to James Oglethorpe to establish Georgia in hopes of creating a buffer between Britain's other colonies and Spanish Florida. So at this time, Spain still controlled Florida. Okay, so with Spain still controlling Florida and the other kind of colonies going to the north along the coast of the United States in the Atlantic Ocean, okay, there wanted to be another English colony in kind of the middle of that. So Oglethorpe wanted the Georgia colony to be a place where debtors, those who had been jailed for their unpaid debts in England, can make a new start. He also wanted Georgia to not have large plantation, and he even outlawed slavery and limited land size grants. So he really wanted Georgia to not be kind of like how the Carolinas were. He wanted Georgia to have, be as a refuge, right, for people who had unpaid debts, and then he did not want even slavery to exist there. However, a lot of settlers started to grow unhappy with these rules, and the British government made Georgia a royal colony that allowed large plantations with slaves. And so we do see Georgia becoming just kind of pretty much like all the other southern colonies with plantations and enslaved people working on those plantations. All right, last slide here. Okay, so if you haven't noticed right now, pretty much the main economy of the Southern colonies is going to be dependent on agriculture. Agriculture as in farming, plantations, right? That is how they are making their money. An economy is how, they make their money. Pretty much think of economy, money, okay? Farmers did well because of a warm climate and long growing season. I mean, think about pretty much where we're talking. We're talking pretty much, right, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, pretty much right here in the southeast, even too, right, more towards the coast. And so we start seeing, right, a little warmer climate, especially first tomorrow, we'll be talking about. So we have three main cash crops, as in this is how they made their money. These three crops is how the South made their money. Tobacco, rice, and indigo. Indigo is kind of a plant they used to dye things with. It's like a purplish color, right? They used to dye things with. Okay, and since their economy based on agriculture and these three cash crops, a large workforce was needed to grow and harvest these cash crops, and so by 1700s we see enslaved Africans becoming the main source of labor to be able to harvest and grow these cash crops. And so since their economy is dependent on agriculture, we also can say the economy was definitely dependent on enslaved Africans, right, being the main labor source to harvest these crops here. Okay, so that is it. Oh, no, 2 more slides. Sorry, I lied. Okay, those are the last 2, I promise. Slavery then was a brutal condition for many of these inhabitants of the southern colonies. We even see most of these southern colonies passing slave codes or laws, right, to be able to control slaves, and we're going to be talking more into that in lesson 4 of how it started, but then even more later so in the springtime. Alright, so that is it for your lesson 1 notes. Again, if I went too fast through it all, you can rewind the video, pause it at any point, okay? So again, what you're doing is, while watching through this video, you are filling in those blanks on that Pages document I showed earlier in the video, okay, or earlier right now. And then what you're going to do after that is screenshot. So if you're on your notes, once you have filled it in, go ahead and take a screenshot of your notes filled in and submit that, and that is your attendance for today, okay? Just after all the blanks are filled in, if you want to just do, this bottom part, or just some way I can see, right, take a screenshot. You don't only have to do 1 screenshot. You don't have to do 1,000, okay? And then just submit that to Schoology, right? We're back in Schoology right here, okay? On this assignment, go ahead on the Module 3 Lesson 1 notes for today. Just submit a screenshot of your notes filled in, and again, that is your attendance for September 22nd, okay? After you do that, okay, you see